prize.
I think it's not the issue.
That is Bill. I had it. I have the spell one. Okay.
No? You have a mic? Good morning, and thank you so much for being here with us. My name is Sacbc, the Communications Officer of the Southern African Catholic Bishops' Conference. Welcome to this press briefing at the end of our 8-day meeting, that is the first plenary session for the year 2024 of the Sacbc. And so, here with me, I have the President of the Sacbc, Bishop Sithembele Sipuka, the Sacbc Spokesperson, Cardinal Stephen Brislin, and we also have a representative from the Justice and Peace Commission, that is the Sacbc Justice and Peace Commission, Chaka Isebo. Well, thank you so much. The media that is present here, you are welcome. Thank you. We have communications officers coming all the way from Durban Archdiocese, Kroonstad, Johannesburg. We also have Radio Veritas, we have MAFAM, we have Southern Cross. So thank you so much for being here with us. Without any further ado, I now hand over the word to Cardinal Brislin.
Thank you very much, Sheila, and it's really good to be with you this morning. I'm going to read out the communique that has been prepared for the end of this Bishops' Plenary session. The bishops of the Catholic Church in Southern Africa gathered for their plenary session under the theme Synodality at Kanya House, the Sacbc National Headquarters in Pretoria, from the 23rd to the 30th of January 2024. Having prayerfully reflected in a synodal way on issues affecting the Church and the state of the nation in South Africa, they have issued this communique. In his opening presidential address, Bishop Sithembele Sipuka highlighted the positive matric results of 2023 and congratulated the Department for Basic Education on this achievement. He also referred to the troubling economic situation of the country and the negative impact that it is having on the lives of many South Africans. He expressed gratitude for the fact that in this post-COVID period, the number of congregants at services of worship has increased and that usual activities were returning in churches. Of concern is that a number of priests are not well trained in catechesis, and he encouraged further specialization of priests in this area. The President applauded the renewed efforts for inculturation of faith and the work of the Theological Advisory Commission in that regard. During the 8-day meeting, the bishops, who are from South Africa, Botswana and Eswatini, addressed matters concerning faith formation, laity, ongoing formation of clergy, theological studies on and a pastoral response to the complex issue of gender fluidity, which will be further discussed and informed by professional input. They also considered the upcoming general elections in South Africa, the Synod on Synodality, the financial state of the Bishops' Conference, working towards a self-sufficient church, as well as pastoral matters at the diocesan level. In terms of ecumenism and interfaith dialogue, it was resolved that every diocese should establish an ecumenical interfaith committee to facilitate dialogue on that level. Spirituality and faith formation. In keeping with the theme of the January plenary session, the bishops discussed matters concerning the ongoing formation of the clergy recommended by the Synod on Synodality at the end of the first session in October 2023. It was resolved that recently ordained priests be encouraged to be actively involved with and participate in the program organized for their ongoing formation, known as AGROP. The bishops also discussed matters concerning the ongoing formation of the laity, especially in terms of a missionary spirituality, as envisaged by the Synod on Synodality, through the existing synodalities and processes of parishes. discussions were held on the need to provide new opportunities for priests, religious and laity in their formation and Catholic education. Regarding the Vatican document on blessings of individuals in irregular unions, Fiducia Supplicans, the bishops agreed that the stipulations of the declaration be implemented with prudence. Synodality. The January plenary session was the first meeting of the Catholic bishops of Southern Africa since the end of its first session of the 16th General Assembly of Bishops on synodality. A full day was reserved for reports on the synod delivered by the Sacbc synod delegates, together with 2 religious sisters and 2 bishops who facilitated the conversation in the spirit of the methodology used at the synod. Bishops were divided into 4 groups to reflect on 2 points. How can we be a synodal church in mission? How can we enhance the differentiated co-responsibility in the mission of all the members of the people of God? The bishops are to finalize a report by the end of April, which is to be sent to Rome by May the 15th. The 2024 general elections and the role of the Church. In preparation for the general elections in South Africa, the Justice and Peace Commission held a panel discussion on the state of the nation. During the session, bishops emphasized that the Church is called to proclaim the good news and to be a source of hope to people among all the serious challenges facing the country. However, it cannot offer false hope. A pastoral letter will be issued to the country, encouraging those who are entitled to vote, and to vote according to their consciences, and informed by Catholic social teaching. In terms of the conflict in Israel, Palestine, and Gaza, the bishops commended the South African government for the principled approach to the International Court of Justice for the protection of innocent lives. They made a strong appeal to those involved in this tragic conflict, as well as those supporting it, to honor the decisions of the International Court of Justice. Peace can only be established with the total cessation of hostilities and a just settlement for all the peoples of the Holy Land. And the communique ends at that point. I can also tell you that Chaka is here from the Justice and Peace Commission, because one of the issues that was reported on during the plenary session was the issue of the case that the Justice and Peace Commission has facilitated of minors who are ill and suffering because of the coal mining dust disease. And a number of coal mining companies have been taken to court in hopefully what will be a, what do you call it, a mass action? Class action for compensation. So we have Chaki here if you would like to ask any questions on that regard. So I'll leave it open to you now if you would like to ask any questions. The communique will be given to you at the end of this. But if you have picked up anything that you would like to ask on, that's why we're here.
Thank you very much, Cardinal Brislin. I'll ask that you make use of the microphones before you and make sure you introduce yourself and which media house or communications office you represent and to whom the question is addressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Evidence, for this. I'm Khaya from Radio Veritas, and I know you've been deliberating and so on. My question is, what is, and I hear from the letter that you just read now, the communique that you just read now, what do you think is the most vital and most difficult issue that the Church in South Africa faces today?
Thank you very much. I think perhaps would the President like to answer that as President?
There are many issues, but you're asking me now the most concerning one. We are a church, and our role is to invite as many people as possible in the kingdom of God through the church. And what we are experiencing is a decline of numbers. Much as I rejoiced that the church participation is going towards normality, but there is an evident decline of people participating, in church, particularly the young people. And this, for me, would be the major concern in the life of the church. I'd like to see the numbers swelling and filling the churches and building more churches. But instead, at least speaking from a Tata experience, we're closing some outstations that were there before our time. So this is, for me, is a big crisis.
Press the button.
Yeah. Good morning, Madam. My name is Dr. Moloato from the Southern Cross. And the question is directed to any of you. We know that in the first democratic elections in 1994, the church was highly involved in the preparations for the elections and the elections themselves and what happened thereafter. So in these coming elections, are we going to see any active involvement of the church in the preparations and anything in that regard?
Yes, as this has been mentioned in the communique, it is our consent and willingness to facilitate effective elections. As you have heard, the Cardinal mentioned that a pastoral letter is in the process of being drafted. We are also planning education, voter education, program, because, as it has been said, that this is perhaps since 1994 the most crucial and with a lot of expectations about these elections since 1994. So we will be doing voter education and also praying as well. We're inviting a lot of prayer here so that they are smooth. Part of the Lenten reflection, part of it will be centered around the elections.
And just to add on to that as well, we are preparing a number of Lenten reflections, and I think the point is to try to guide people in their consciences about the sort of things that they should look for. I think the pastoral statement that is still in draft form is quite a strong statement in this regard, and really calling on people to think very carefully about who they feel they should vote for. But certainly saying that, please, if you have the right to vote, you must vote. But since Chuck is from the Justice and Peace, I don't know if you would like to add anything onto that, because there was the manual produced as well, wasn't there, for voter education or democracy, I think.
Yeah, there is a manual that will be made. I'll make sure that each one of you gets a copy. But I think the bishops have covered it quite well.
Father Tabo?
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Father Tabo Chomani from Krumsat Diocese. One of the catchy words the Cardinal used in the communique is hope, offering hope to young people especially. And Bishop Sipuka also mentioned the issue of youth and his worry about the state of the youth. And looking into our country, our society at large, youth and everyone else really, people are hopeless generally. And number of things we hear of, or that you mentioned in the except perhaps the Fiducia Supplicans. A number of these issues that you mentioned are quite crucial, and they do matter in terms of if our society is how to give hope into our society. I was happy when you said not false hope, and I think that's very important, not false hope. But how do you suggest, or will it be there in the pastoral letter, how do you suggest as bishops that this issue of giving hope and not false hope should be addressed in the parishes and in the country at large?
Perhaps just before Bishop Sipuka speaks, I could say that one thing that we should never forget, that while we have got many difficult and bad issues in South Africa and many crises, it's quite true, but we shouldn't forget the very good things that we have as well. And one of those very positive things is democracy. We are a democratic country, and we can vote, and we have got freedom of expression. We're one of the few countries in Africa, I would say, who can criticize our president and our government without impunity. We've got freedom of association, and we have the hope for the future, particularly because our whole history and the history of 1994 teaches us that things can change and things can go for the better. We should not forget the situation we were in the apartheid era. It was a terrifying experience. People were lived in fear, and 1994 transformed that remarkably so. And so there is always that hope and the possibility for transformation in the future. But we should not forget to count our blessings. But I give over to Bishop Sipuka as well.
Yeah, the other dimension of this hope is from our faith. That while many people are overwhelmed with the apparent hopelessness, we'd like to remind ourselves that as long as God is among us, we can remain hopeful, and things can change, for the better. And this is the part that actually belongs to us as church, because other people, they offer a sense of hope from the facts of life and possibilities, that may be there. But in addition to that, ourselves, we rely on God. Also at a personal and existential level as well, because the situation in which we are has hit people at an existential level that they actually lose hope. And so much as we would like to talk about things objectively and in general, we are also reminding people of the need to draw strength when they are meeting with the difficulties of our time for their personal lives, with God, because many people end up feeling overwhelmed and hopeless, and some of them killing themselves. I know from my diocese in Port St. John's, one young woman, because she saw no future, killed her 3 children, and then killed herself, because she could not see any way forward. And so this aspect of hope, apart from what we see as the Cardinal has expressed, that our whole political infrastructure, our whole dispensation is such that it is within our hands, to change things for the better. But for those who believe as well, is that there is a God who is among us, so that we remain hopeful, and in whatever personal existential situation a person may be confronted with, we want to remind people that God is there.
Thank you so much.
Could I just add one thing there as well, because I think we should also be cognizant of the fact of the mental health crisis. You notice as Bishop Sipuka was talking, it reminded me that during the plenary session we also had a professional addressing to us on the state of mental health in South Africa, post-COVID, post the pandemic. And there really is a problem. I mean, people are really suffering and struggling through mental health issues. And I think we've got to question how the church can respond to that as well. And some very practical examples were given to us during the course of the plenary and in that session. But I think we need to be cognizant of this, that there is a mental health issue of people going through depression and desperation. Thank you.
Tony, would you like to ask a question?
Yes, I wanted to mention that I don't know, what was discussed.
Sorry, Tony, I'll just ask you to please introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you. My name is Tony Rowland from MAFAM, Marriage and Family Renewal Ministry, and obviously I'm not aware of what was discussed, during the plenary, but I wanted to highlight the fact that this year is the 30th anniversary of the International Year of the Family, started in 1994. And I thought that could be an opportunity that the government will be taking up, well, the UN is taking it up, it's the UN commemoration, and that, maybe we as church could look at, at picking up on the existential and personal reality of people. We focused a lot on youth as individuals. We focus quite a lot these days on men, and women as women separately, and to bring it together as the umbrella of the family. I think this gives us an opportunity, having this 30-year anniversary, to maybe make something meaningful out of that.
You are right, Tony. I couldn't agree with you more. And I would also like to thank you for your passion about this ministry, because everything begins there. And I think it is a good reminder that you are letting us about that we must not treat people as individuals. We must treat them in the background of being a family, and I hope that you have been instrumental in this in establishing family desks in various dioceses, and from my experience, it is picking up, even though it's still full of challenges. So, in the light of your comment, it's something that I think we as bishops we should continue to encourage, and particularly this anniversary that you are talking about. I must confess that it did not feature in our discussions, but we will find a way of filtering it through. Thank you.
Thanks, and it might interest you to know that a couple of years ago, when a small delegation from the Bishops' Conference met with the President of the country, and he had a few of his ministers present at the meeting as well. And the whole issue of family was brought up at that meeting, and our concerns for the welfare of families and support for families. And I must be honest, I think the Minister for Social Development showed a real concern about that. I think she really did. I think she was very genuine in her response and in her just in a certain compassion, I think, that she showed. As Bishop Sipuka said, this is the basis of society. And we must also just acknowledge, I think, of those very, very courageous men and women who don't have the perfect family, because family life is suffering so much in South Africa. Many children brought up by one parent or don't even know their parents, but there are those who are really heroic in what they are doing to try to keep the family together and to try to do the best they can in very difficult circumstances.
Yeah. Well, the Social Development Department will be having a conference on the International Year of the Family, the 30th anniversary conference. But that's in May, and that's quite soon. So, we have to see what we can do. Yeah. But that we can make it the whole year.
Thank you, Tony. I think it's important to talk a little bit more about the Fiducia Supplicans, as it's a document that really stirred up a lot of confusion. There was also the press release coming from Sacbec, that is from the Catholic Church as a continent, and prior to that, of course, the SCCBC had issued a statement. But following this plenary, how did the SCCBC reach the decision that it has reached with regards to this document? I think perhaps we can start with you, Cardinal Brislin.
Thank you very much. I think the first thing to realize about that document is that it is a declaration. It is not a change in doctrine, and in fact, the declaration very clearly reaffirms the doctrine of the Catholic Church regarding marriage, that marriage is a lifelong commitment between a man and a woman. So I think that must be very, very clear in the minds of people. It is really a document that is talking about a pastoral practice, recognizing that people who are homosexual, for example, or people who are in other irregular situations, for example, people have been divorced and remarried and haven't managed to have an annulment, and young people perhaps who are living together without any marriage or any commitment, that they are not excluded from the pastoral care of the Church. And what this document is saying is that if such people come as for a blessing, that blessing should not be denied to them, because the blessing is not a reward for perfection. So we know that Christ came for sinners, and he came to heal, and he came to strengthen and give us his grace. The mere fact, the document says, that a person or couple would come for a blessing is an indication that they are open to God's grace, and they are seeking God's grace, that they know that they cannot rely only on their own strength. We know that we have taken a slightly different stand from the rest of Africa, and that's simply because ultimately it's up to the local bishop to see how he will implement this recommendation, this declaration, if you like. This is quite clear, because it's a pastoral issue, it's not a doctrinal issue. So each bishop has got to assess the particular needs of his own diocese and the particular impact that this would have. And we in South Africa felt that obviously it's up to each local bishop, but that we would implement the document and its recommendations with blessings prudently, just with prudence. Other African countries have come to a different conclusion, and they're fully entitled to do that, because they are looking at their own particular situations and their own particular pastoral concerns. So that is just a little bit of a description of why we've taken our stand, and it might differ slightly from other African countries. It's certainly not a criticism of them. They must just see and assess their own particular situations.
And if I may add, definitely same-sex union, according to the teaching of the Church, is not in accordance with the will of God. And yet, as the Cardinal has said, even people who have deviated, who are deviating from the will of God, are not excluded from the mercy of God, especially if they spontaneously ask, for this blessing, and giving it brings a sense of hope, that these people may eventually, repent and like many sinners in the time of Jesus, who, after meeting him, they change. It is with that hope also, because as we said in the document, the grace of God operates in different ways for different peoples. the way I come to God, is different from yours because you're unique. Yours maybe a straight, way, but maybe for me, it will go this way and then that way and then that way and then maybe eventually, I come. So it is with that desire not to give up really on anybody without suggesting that what the person is doing is wrong.
And I think it's also an opportunity for us to recall that we are all meant to live chaste lives. And any couple who comes, obviously, our prayer is always that they will live chaste lives. And chastity means that you live your sexuality according to your particular status in life. So if you're married, you live a sexual life within marriage. If you're single, you live as a single person and live your sexuality in that way. The difficulty that the Church has, I think, in this is not that somebody is gay, and it's not even that they live together. It's that sexual expression which is not in accordance with God's will. So I think that the prayer is always for people to live a chaste life. And in talking about homosexuals or other people in irregular situations, it is actually a challenge to all of us that we make sure that we do live chaste lives. Thank you.
And just to add also one point on what the documents is saying, this idea of prudence. We don't know what concrete expression that prudence will take. It will depend on the circumstances. But one thing that the document is saying, and which we are also affirming as bishops, is that it should not give an impression that one is legitimizing, the same-sex union when you do it. So this is part of this prudence. An impression should not be given both to those who are asking for a blessing, that by blessing them you are legitimizing what they are doing, or even worse, those who are observing, in other words, creating a scandal, that the Catholic Church, as it has been said, by the media when this came out, that now same-sex union people can be blessed. And as you know, blessing often has a meaning of performing the sacrament or a ritual. The document is not saying this. And this is where the whole question of prudence is emphasized. We don't want to be prescriptive, but on the other hand, we are clear about what that act, when it is done, that it should not give an impression that the Church is approving same-sex marriage.
Thank you. Father Tabo?
Thank you. Should I introduce myself again? I would say from a pastoral point of view, I once had an encounter where a young lady who handled herself as a lady from a young age, and after she turned 18, she decided, I'm going to come out. When she came to me, she asked me, where does the Church put me? And I think I tried to exercise prudence in that case. And I don't think many priests will have a challenge, or anyone will have a challenge in that situation. I think the real challenge here and the confusion is what happens when people, same-sex, come together. They come together. I think that's where the confusion is. Alone is fine. You can affirm that, and you can accept, you can show that the Church accepts everyone. But what happens when they come together? And because the reason for coming is, do you approve? I think that's the question they want to know. That's the question they are asking. And I know particularly when this person came out, they started changing their dress code. And however, they had to move from their own home and go away, because now it becomes something disturbing in the community if the community accepts her as she expresses herself differently. And she also wanted to know if she can be in a relationship with another lady, or that's the church say. And basically that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's a problem giving the church's teaching and showing that we care as a church and accept everyone. Yes, and how does the bishop, because I think many priests want to know, and all those in the parish, they want to know, what do the bishop say in that case, coming together and asking for a blessing? I'm sure many priests will tell you, we can handle that if someone comes along and asks for a blessing.
Yes, it is challenging. I think that is the challenging part of this document. I would only say that, to remind you that this is a simple blessing, as people would come after church and say, "Look, Father, I'm taking a trip to Johannesburg tomorrow, would you give me your blessing?" As other people might come as a couple. The sin lies within the people living out a sexuality that is not in accordance with the church. And obviously, if, let us say, a homosexual couple come to us, we immediately presume that it is also a sexual relationship. The possibility is always there that it's not, that it's just for companionship, it's to live together, it's because they do love each other, but in fact that they're not. Generally speaking, when we give a simple blessing, we don't ask a lot of questions. We don't ask people, okay, this is your wife, have you been faithful to her always, and that sort of thing. And I would suggest that the same, even though this is challenging, and I agree with you, I would say it's the same in this. Just take it very simply and just say, okay, you don't have to ask questions of, are you having sex and that sort of thing. Just say, ask a blessing, give a blessing. But the motivation does need to be right. And as Bishop Sipuka said, it must be a spontaneous request. And it mustn't be in order to promote an ideology or to show themselves. It must be a genuine thing that is coming from their hearts, because they are struggling, presumably, with their situation. And I think that makes a big difference too. So there is again, going back to prudence, not only on the part of the bishop, but on the part of the priest as well. And I think that is recognized in the document and its clarification.
Thank you, Cardinal Brislin. Father, please introduce yourself.
Good day. My name is Father David, and I represent the Communications Office for the Archdiocese of Durban. My first question is to His Eminence. We live in an age of misinformation and fake news, which often serves an ideological base and both creates and fosters division. In addressing these sensitive issues, from the class action lawsuit to the ICJ ruling on Israel and the blessing of those in irregular unions, how can the Church continue to ensure that her people are correctly informed, or, to use the word that has been used, conscientized? My second question is for the Justice and Peace representative. The Church is very often seen as defending the moral fabric of society. And so what is the moral basis for the class action lawsuit? Or could a brief summary of the case be given? Thank you.
Fake news is very, very real, and misinformation is very real. And unfortunately, social media, despite all its many, many benefits and blessings that it brings, is also a vehicle and a medium for fake news. Always my first recommendation to people is to be very careful about which blogs they go onto and which sites that they watch. Because a number of the sites have a particular slant, or as you say, a particular ideology that they're trying to promote. But I think there are many blogs that give a far more balanced view of things. One thinks of something like, Bishop Barron, for example, who gives tremendously rich and powerful reflections on things. And I think those are the sort of things that people must be looking for. Some of the things that are written on the blogs are so unchristian, no matter what side they're coming from, whether it's left or right, that you can recognize from the way in which they are speaking that this is a pushing of an ideology rather than trying to find and to reflect on a balanced view. So people who start calling the Pope the Antichrist or the devil incarnate or something, if you're looking at sites and blogs like that, leave them behind. And also from the other side, when people might say that Pope Benedict might be the Antichrist or something, get away from those sites. Try to find those that are enriching, that at the end of them you're feeling more at peace with yourself rather than angry because of what has been said, either because you agree with it or you don't agree with it. But those things that bring you a spiritual satisfaction, if you like. But it's a very real thing, and it's very difficult in the world today to actually be able to determine what is true and what is not. Thank you.
Okay, to respond to your question, I think we all have a moral obligation to look after each other. And as the Justice and Peace Commission being on the ground most of the time, there are times where we are compelled to respond to people's needs and suffering. So the whole basis of the class action was to the church responding to people's suffering and people's immediate need for justice. What you have is a lot of miners who worked in the coal mines, gold mines, asbestos mines, suffered through their work time with very poor safety regulations from the 1960s and earlier. And as a consequence, the families, women and children, those who are alive, are bearing the suffering of that system. So, number one, we would like to see justice for those people who suffered. And most important of all, we would like to stop the poor labor practices that is happening in the mines, so that our future generations do not suffer the same fate as their fathers and their mothers and their families, what the families are suffering. Obviously, we would very much love that a settlement is reached as quickly as possible, and that the miners who are affected get compensated, and the widows and women and children who are left behind are also compensated. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I see that we're running out of time. It's now 11:44. Anyone else has a question? Yes, Chaim?
Okay. Sorry. So this is about what are we doing enough in parishes at the Gaza level to teach the values of fraternity, particularly among Catholics of all races. I know that we have the pastoral plan, yes, that has been brought out and so on. But are we doing enough to teach the values of fraternity at both parish and pastoral level?
Yes, but there's room for improvement. I think that traditionally, as the church at practical level, parish level, we tend to deal with the immediate needs, doing charity works, feeding the hungry, helping those who are poor. This is a very important part as well, of being a Christian, to meet the needs of your neighbor on the spot. We have a Department of Justice and Peace, through which we want to go further and address the reasons why people are poor, so that they don't become objects of charity, that they reclaim their dignity. It's work in progress. Perhaps as Shaga would explain, he can report about how much of success are they getting in regard to this, establishing justice and peace desk in various dioceses. But it is something that we are working on. It's still far from being perfect, but it is there. I don't know if Shaga would continue.
I think what's more important is seeing the church or the parish as a whole responding to immediate needs of the community that they're in, and also responding to responding for those immediate needs, and also preparing and setting up preventative measures so that certain challenges do not happen in the future. And we, as you know, we live in a very fragmented, poor society, which, as we speak right now, there's a lot of hopelessness within our society. There's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of suffering, and it's up to us as a church, as parishes, to respond to the suffering first within the parish, and once we got it together, and once we have it, then moving out into the community.
And it's to both Bishop Sipuka and Cardinal Brislin. Just, at the conclusion of this plenary, just your own personal sense of going forward. How do you feel? Are you feeling hope? How do you feel after, being engaged over the last 7 days in these discussions?
Well, I think in the first thing I will say, I speak for myself and Bishop Sipuka, we're feeling tired. But no, for myself, I feel tremendous hope, certainly. There are enormous challenges that face us. I think one of the things that has given me a great deal of hope was the day that we had of reflecting on the Synod. And as you heard in the communique, that the methodology that was used with us was the methodology used at the Synod in Rome. And it was very, very powerful. I think perhaps even in my own mind, I've always thought of synodality really as being a sort of way of trying to make a decision, a different type of way of just a business meeting. But it's far, far more than that. And it's really based on a lot of prayer, of praying by yourself and praying together in your group, and then of listening and allowing somebody to talk without commenting, without sighing and things like that, just to listen. And then you have the opportunity to reflect on that. And it really turned out for me to be an extraordinarily powerful experience. And I certainly hope that we can start implementing that in our parishes, really to be a synodal church. And being a synodal church doesn't mean that we don't all have our roles. I mean, I have my role as a bishop, and Father Tauber as a priest, and so on, Father David. It doesn't remove the roles that we have, but it's just the way in which we exercise our roles, either as laity or people. But I think that this has given me a lot of energy to say that this can really invigorate our parishes. Thank you.
Yeah, you see, hope has various dimensions. That when you have a dilemma and then you look at it, then you sort of find a solution to it, and then that gives you hope that it is going to be eliminated. But also hope involves the capacity and the ability to cope successfully without you being destroyed with that situation. And so, as we end this, I myself have hope under those two dimensions, of hope. having been here and meeting other bishops, we talk about good things, but also things that are not going so well. And then you hear, you know, what you should do in order to eliminate that obstacle, or what you should do in order to cope with it. And certainly, as I live now, you know, I much as I'm tired physically, but I'm ready to face this year, thanks to this meeting. That is at a personal level. But also at an objective, you know, level, when you look at problems and then you come here and you hear reports, we had reports from the Department of Justice and Peace, and you are hearing these efforts that are being made now by the department towards addressing the plight of the miners. That gives hope. We don't know if we're going to succeed in court or not. We have been watching on TV, almost feeling helpless about Gaza, because the countries that matter, you know, are not doing anything about it. You know, instead they are fermenting it even more and supporting it more. And South Africa, in the whole world, stood alone, you know, to have this address. And the war is still going on, people are still being killed, but what gives me hope about it is that this has been put now at an international platform, you know, that this is questionable, whereas the impression that we have been given is that, no, this is the way it should be, you know, people should die in Gaza because of Hamas. But now South Africa has stood up, you know, to question this, and everybody at least is beginning to debate now. You know, they know that, you know, things cannot just continue, you know, as if it's business as usual. So as we leave now, you know, going back home, we don't have a solution to everything, but we have gained some insights on how we can handle certain obstacles, possibly towards eliminating them. We gain insights on how we can cope, you know, with circumstances that we cannot at least immediately change. So those are the hopes. I've mentioned some of them. There are many others that I could tell you about.
And I think one of the things that we are very privileged in the Bishops' Conference, we hear about so many things happening on diocesan level, parish level. There's so much good work being done by very, very inspiring people who are not in the public domain very often. You know, they're unsung heroes, as we would say. But we're enormously grateful to them and their commitment, their sacrifices they made in order to reach out to others.
Yeah, and also here, you know, to note the developments. I think ever since being president, I don't remember having a press conference. This is a development, you know, that things are moving forward, you know. And I would like to thank you for showing the interest.
All right. Any more questions? We are about to end. Lerato, please introduce yourself quickly and go ahead.
My name is Lerato Muhani, and I'm from the
Talking to the mic.
Archdiocese News Johannesburg. So my question is regards to the general elections. You know, political parties sometimes like to use our churches as a campaign platform. What is the church's stance on that? Thank you.
No, I don't think that that should be allowed, because we would end up not doing our business as church if we are going to be fair to last time I counted, there were about 350-something parties. Now, if you are going to allow one party to come and talk in your church, you know, when are you going to finish allowing all these parties? So, you know, practically, you know, it's not possible. And secondly, in your congregation, you have people belonging to various parties, and you know, by allowing one party, you know, as a priest, because these things happen, for example, in the parishes, you are alienating others, you know. And also, when you're talking from a platform or in a church situation, you have a captured audience that cannot interrogate you. You say what you want to say, and there is no dialogue about it. People cannot ask you, a question. So it is not the right platform. So from my point of view, this point did not explicitly come out of in our discussion, but I presume that this is the position that you would take, that we're not going to allow politicians to use our platform in order to campaign.
Yes, certainly in the Archdiocese of Cape Town, we don't allow any political party. Obviously, for the IEC to use a church hall or something for elections, that's fine, but not a political party. It was very interesting. We had a representative of the IEC during this plenary session, and he showed us a possible ballot paper, which is about that big, because it caters for 350 parties. So it's going to be very, very challenging for people this time voting, yes.
Yes, you may go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Sheldon Rosemedia. I'm from the Archdiocese of Johannesburg. I run Sacred Photos Media, as well as I'm the head of religious education at St. David's Barracks in London. So I work with young people. My question is to His Eminence or to Bishop Sipuka, based on Fiducia Supplicans. If I may just preface the question and then get into it. Same-sex couples typically believe that the Church needs to change its stance and teaching about same-sex relationships and acts. As such, it seems fair to ask how many same-sex couples are genuinely seeking to make their relationship holy, meaning free of homosexual thoughts and acts in the first place. How many acknowledge in any way that homosexual attraction is objectively disordered, as the Catechism teaches? The fact that they present themselves as a couple would seem to suggest that they are actively involved in embracing a gay lifestyle rather than resisting it while remaining same-sex attracted. In this light, how would a bishop, priest, or deacon properly bless such couples as couples while not being deceptive about the intention of such a blessing or insulting them and creating a further obstacle between them and the Church?
Good.
First of all, as we clarified in our response to Fiducia, people with same-sex attraction, should be accepted. They are accepted. In fact, I should not say they should. They are accepted, in the Church, and any discrimination against them in any way, just because they are attracted to the same sex, is not allowed. Unfortunately, then, for those people, if they want to take things further, they can't, in line of establishing a union, because our faith, which comes to us through revelation from God, is not of our own making. Is that this is not allowed? It's disordered. But of course, when I'm talking to them, I'll probably refrain from this language. But I would engage with them if they are people of faith. If then, they don't accept that, they have a choice, either to continue believing it or not continue believing it, But we cannot bend the rules just because they feel that, as you were saying, that we should change. we can't change, because what we are transmitting is not of our own making, it's something that we have received through faith. And sometimes in painful situations, we have to say that, I'm sorry, if we are operating within the faith environment, this is not on. But the manner of communicating that, the attitude of communicating that, because God loves everybody except sin. And the way then we talk to people, it should show that respect and love and consent. But as the Cardinal's motto, states, truth in charity.
And I think we're all challenged by the challenge itself to live our sexuality appropriately, and certainly for the Church, the proper expression of sexuality is within marriage, which is between a man and a woman. And as Bishop Sipuka said, I mean, this is a divine thing. This is not something of a church law that can simply be changed. Disordered, yes, because for the Church, really any sexual expression outside of that is in some way disordered. But I think the Church also does encourage people who are attracted to the same sex to form friendships, because people do need to be in a type of relationship that is not just sexual, but that gives them companionship and takes away loneliness. And I think this is very clear that the Church does encourage that. And that's why I say that if a same-sex couple come and ask for a blessing, it's not really necessary in this case, in the light of Fiducia Supplicans, to ask, now, are you in a sexual relationship or not? Just take it simply and give the blessing. But people must know that this is not an endorsement of a relationship and a sexual expression between people of the same sex. I think that must just be very, very clear. And again, I just say that, we're all challenged to live our sexuality in an appropriate way that is pleasing to God. Thank you.
Thank you. We have actually passed the hour. It's now 3 minutes after 12. We should be rounding things up, but we'll take the last two questions. Please keep it brief. And let's finish this. Thank you. Khanya, you may go first, and then Father Tabo. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll make them quick. The first one is to Eminence, Cardinal Brislin. When we spoke on the radio, you had just been announced as the Cardinal. And you then said that I still don't know what this means. Have you had a chance to work out what it means to be a Cardinal? So that's number one. And number two, maybe to Bishop Sipuka, the question of Catholic universities and trying to bring the central values and all the Catholic institutions, bringing really one Catholic university and so on. Did that come up at this particular plenary, and are you able to give us some direction?
Kanya, I'm tempted to say that I'm more confused now than ever before, but we won't go there. No, it is settled. I am more settled in myself. I must be honest, when the announcement was made, caused quite a lot of turmoil within myself. But when I went to Rome just before the consistory, I had a few days that were really days of retreat. I was able to go to the different basilicas and spend some time in prayer and so on. So I feel very settled within myself. The actual work of a cardinal will unfold over time. I haven't really been called on to do anything in Rome yet. I have been appointed to the dicastery for the cause of saints, and I've had a very nice letter from the cardinal prefect, and we'll see how it goes. But I think I'm much more settled in myself, and the support that I've received from the bishops, from many, many priests and people has been very strengthening for me. And of course, I had such a wonderful welcome in my home diocese and my hometown of welcome in the Diocese of Kroonstad, with an incredibly joyful and wonderful celebration that has really left me feeling very uplifted. Thank you.
Yes, I think also this second question should have been addressed to the Cardinal, because he is leading, he is facilitating the discussion of the question that you have asked. As you might perhaps know, we've come to realize the need for a coordinated existence and operations of higher learning, so that we don't duplicate efforts and resources. And we are at a stage now where we are talking with various Catholic institutes of higher learning, because we have been, up to this point, we are all independent. And so we are treading carefully to make institutions understand, the value of coordinated, efforts. So we're still at a talking stage, and then after that, then we will go at how can we do that.
And the dream, of course, is really to establish a university that will benefit not only the formation of priests and religious consecrated persons, not even people who just want to do a degree in philosophy or theology, but really to impact on the Catholic laity for their ongoing faith formation as well. And that's what the dream is. But the how, of course, is very important, how we're going to get there.
Thank you. Father Tabo?
Yes. Thank you. Let me start first by commending our bishops for being one word. Always there's a sign of unity whenever bishops meet. You don't get a feeling that you kind of get from around the world. The media depicts other conferences as if there's division and there's disparity. But in our conference, thank you, our bishops, for that. Mainly because we know you write pastoral letters when necessary and you address issues when necessary, and we always look or await that whenever there's something comes up, and then because we often get to a point where we sort of say we don't want to have or pull our own direction. We wait for our bishops in here what they've got to say, so that we know also how to address some issues. And how, in the light of that also, how would you advise the priests or those who preach in the churches, especially if some scriptural texts seem to be addressing issues such as sexuality and so on? Would you say avoid talking about certain issues or just use a prophetic word? How do you advise priests in that case? Because I know certainly the congregations will be saying, no, Father, don't talk about that. That is very disturbing or something like that. How would you advise priests on those who share the word in their communities?
Yeah, I would say, a balance between being too obsessed, with sex, and also being too careless about not talking about, because they say that money makes the world go round, but I think sex also makes the world really go round in many positive and negative ways. Look at the teenage pregnancy, for example. I think in the Eastern Cape, where I come from, 2 teenagers in 10, they get pregnant. That has consequences, of children growing up, without a family, a mother and a father. So not only should a priest talk about it when the readings, suggest it, but make sure to address it in your catechism. Because if you only talk about it when the readings happen to hint at it, first of all, you're talking alone about it, whereas if you were to do it in a catechetics context, then you would have more chances of success. And that is partly why in my address I noted the lack of catechetical training of especially in terms of pedagogy. the way they teach at school so that children can understand more. That is what we need to do. So my answer to your question, is that address is don't shy away, from it, but don't stop as well, just on that day when the readings happen to talk about it. Make sexuality a big portion of your catechism.
We've got to teach the truth, always, but we do so in charity, without condemnation, but we've got to speak the truth. But as Bishop Sipuka, says, don't become obsessed by it. I think as we are reaching the end of this, can I just make a statement that, first of all, thank you very, very much indeed for coming. We had hoped that some of the secular media would be here, they were invited, and we thought that some of them might come, but they haven't, but that's fine. They do phone me and say, well, we want to talk to you about this, and I said, well, Sheila said, well, come to the conference, the press conference, the media briefing. They said, no, we can't, but we'd like to just have a 5-minute phone conversation. We'll see whether that happens. I was a little bit afraid that without the secular media, you might not feel free to ask some tough questions, but I think you have, and I hope that you have felt free to ask whatever you like. And, if we can't answer something, then we can't answer it. But thank you very much indeed for the questions that you have asked, and we appreciate that very much. If I can just say, in our paper regarding Fiducia Supplicans, there's a slight thing that's a little bit badly phrased regarding the Vatican document on blessings of individuals in irregular union. It would be better read persons rather than individuals. Okay, just point that out, because it might give the impression that you just bless an individual, whereas the document itself says it's a couple. Okay, that you bless. It wasn't intended like that. Sheila?
Well, thank you very much, Bishop Sipuka, Cardinal Brislin, Shaka, thank you so much for being here with us, and a special thanks to you, the media, of course, our Catholic media. We had here Radio Veritas, Markham, Sheldon, we also had the communications officers, and not forgetting Southern Cross. Thank you so much for your support, and thanks to everyone that has been following us on our social media pages, that is SACBC on YouTube and Facebook pages. Thank you very much, and with that we come to the end.
And a very big thank you to you, Sheila, as well.
And to the bishops who came to support us, because as I said, this is the first time we're having a press conference, so we're very nervous, and not knowing what you guys are going to do with us. But these brother bishops, they made sure that they are here to support us. Thank you very much.
And the communique will be put over there.
Yeah.
Oh, you want us to stay here?
Bishop Sipuka?
Oh, I thought we were done.
No, I think...
We are going to be done just...
Okay, so...
And then if we can just do some group photos.
That's okay.
For the
Okay, thank you very much.
You are sorry.
Please stay for some tea and coffee.